In part 35, I propose that the first resurrection is what Jesus referred to when he stated, "I will raise him up at the last day." This would be the spiritual fulfillment of the Day of Atonement and correlate with the following. "And he will send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they will gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. And then he will send his angels and gather together his elect from the four winds, from the farthest part of earth to the farthest part of heaven." The great sound of the trumpet would refer to the trumpet of 1 Thessalonians 4:16 and 1 Corinthians 15:52, would it not? I believe so, especially when we recognize that the seventh trumpet represents the manifestation of the sevenfold characteristics of just one trumpet. We'll come back to this. The key word in these passages is the word elect. Strong's defines this as select, by implication favorite. I don't really care for the word favorite, for that is not what elect means. It means chosen, which when properly understood refers to the first fruits or first ripe fruit of the harvest, which indicates that the rest of the harvest will soon be gathered as well. The first fruits are represented by the 144,000 in Revelation, chapters 7 and 14. That being said, consider this. The Feast of Tabernacles was the fruit harvest, with a focus on the olives and the grapes. Olive oil was used as the fuel for the flames on the lampstand, thereby typifying the anointing of the Spirit of God that brings light to His living word of truth. Grapes typify the wrath of God. This is another word I don't care for. Strong's defines wrath as properly desire, as a reaching forth or excitement of the mind. He does go on to say, by analogy, violent passion or ire, by implication, punishment. It's taken from the root meaning to stretch oneself, that is, reach out after, long for. With these definitions in mind, consider what Jesus said in the following. "But the hour is coming, and is now here, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth, for the Father is seeking such people to worship Him." The Father is seeking, that is, He is reaching out to us, not us to Him, and His wrath is His passion, His desire that His will is accomplished on earth as it is in heaven. Should this wrath incorporate punishment, it always comes as a form of discipline to correct us. When you remove this element of correction, you corrupt the idea of God's wrath or passion. This is why I don't believe in eternal torment. There is simply no logic or purpose in it. It's pure maliciousness and vindictiveness. Now let's come back to the seventh trumpet. In part 21 of this series, we considered the lightning, thunder, and voices that issued from the throne and are seen in the seventh seal, trumpet, and bowl, along with an earthquake and great hail. Now, someone might think that these symbols all represent different occurrences at different times, but I do not. The lightning, thunder, voices, and earthquake seen in the seventh seal coincide with the lightning, thunder, voices, and earthquake in the seventh trumpet and bowl. Each description gives a different view of their meaning, so when brought together, they give a better overall understanding. Remember, the opening of the seals is an understanding of those things that proceed through the living Christ, but the loosing of these seals is the actual fulfillment of these things as represented by the sounding of the trumpets and pouring out of the bowls. The trumpets and bowls run parallel with each other in fulfillment of what Peter described on the day of Pentecost and with what Jesus declared to the seven churches. The addition of the great hail in the seventh trumpet and bowl expresses the coldness that Jesus spoke of in Matthew 24:12. An increase of lawlessness is always due to an increase of coldness in the heart. With all this said, here's the kicker. If 7 represents manifestation as well as fullness, then the seventh trumpet signifies the manifestation of the other 6 until they reach the fullness as marked by the seventh. This manifestation is seen as the lightning, thunder, and voices, out of which comes the earthquake and great hail. In other words, the sounding of the seventh trumpet and pouring out of the seventh bowl represent a gradual increase over time until fullness is reached. When fullness is reached, we arrive at the last day, more specifically, at the end of this age. And what did Jesus say he would do? I will raise him or her up at the last day. No, not a rapture, but an infilling of the Spirit, unlike anything we've seen since the day of Pentecost. This is my hope. Remember, 3 is the number of a complete witness. So there are 3 segments in the Feast of Tabernacles, yet it is but one feast. Might this correlate with the following? And I looked, and I heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, because of the remaining blasts of the trumpet of the 3 angels who are about to sound. 3 segments in the Feast of Tabernacles, and the last 3 trumpets are 3 woes. Might the 3 woes denote the spiritual fulfillment of this feast? I believe they do. Here's confirmation as to why they are woes. The lofty looks of man shall be humbled, the haughtiness of men shall be bowed down, and the Lord alone shall be exalted in that day. For the day of the Lord of hosts shall come upon everything proud and lofty, upon everything lifted up, and it shall be brought low. Wail, for the day of the Lord is at hand. It will come as destruction from the Almighty. Behold, the day of the Lord comes cruel, with both wrath and fierce anger, to lay the land desolate, and he will destroy its sinners from it. For the day is near, even the day of the Lord is near. It will be a day of clouds, the time of the Gentiles. Woe to you who desire the day of the Lord! For what good is the day of the Lord to you? It will be darkness and not light. Is not the day of the Lord darkness and not light? Is it not very dark, with no brightness in it? These passages are clear. The day of the Lord is not a time of rejoicing, but a time of darkness and destruction. But what is it a destruction of? The lofty looks and haughtiness of men, the proud and lofty, and everything lifted up. It is pride that brought us down, so it is pride that must be addressed. I am keenly aware that this perspective goes against the highly popular views that are currently embraced, but I cannot apologize. The popular views leave too many questions unanswered. In conclusion, there has never been a time when God's people need to love and lift one another up, regardless of what we may currently disagree on. Jesus said, "By this all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." Love never ends. As for prophecies, they will pass away. As for tongues, they will cease. As for knowledge, it will pass away. So now faith, hope, and love abide, these 3, but the greatest of these is love.